I move that we open the question hour.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved. The question hour is hereby declared. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we suspend the session to allow Secretary Duque, including his technical staff, access to the designated seats in the plenary.
Session suspended. Ako ba magbabasa nito? Session resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize Department of Health Secretary Francisco T. Duque III to deliver his opening statement.
Secretary Duque is hereby recognized. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, and to the Majority Floor Leader. I'd like to thank you in behalf of the Department of Health for this opportunity to present to you the latest information and updates vis-a-vis the novel coronavirus, which is technically termed as the 2019 DAS-N-CoV. My presentation will follow the outline as presented. First, the introduction to coronaviruses, and in particular, the novel coronavirus 2019 nCoV, the 2019 nCoV global situation, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, 2019 nCoV Philippine situation following thereafter, the virulence of the 2019 nCoV infection, and last but not least, the actions taken by your Department of Health and the advice to the public. Coronaviruses, Your Honors, refer to large family of viruses belonging to the family Coronaviridae. And they were named after the crown-like spikes on their surface, as you can see on the slide. Yung po nakikita natin doon na may mga spikes sa taas, thus earning for itself the name coronavirus. These are zoonotic viruses, meaning they are transmitted between animals and people. These viruses cause illness ranging from the common cold, which some of us here must have experienced once or more times in our lives. And this can lead as well to more severe diseases like the MERS-CoV or the Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome and the Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome or the SARS-CoV. Your Honors, the patients who contract the more serious coronavirus were shown to exhibit respiratory symptoms such as fever, cough, shortness of breath, and breathing difficulties. And in extreme cases, the infection can cause pneumonia, severe acute respiratory infection, kidney failure, and to the extreme end, even death. On December 31, 2019, the WHO alerted to several cases of pneumonia in Wuhan City, Hubei province of China. In January 7 of this year, Chinese authorities confirmed that they indeed have identified a new type of coronavirus. The novel coronavirus is a new strain that has not been previously identified in humans. As of January 27, 2020, the World Health Organization has confirmed human-to-human transmission, largely in Wuhan City and some other places in China. However, there is not enough information yet to draw a definitive conclusion about the intensity of the human-to-human transmission, full clinical features, and the original source of the outbreak. And while the development of a vaccine for the nCoV is currently underway, it may take several months to years before it can be made available to the public for use. And for those ill, no definitive treatment can be given. Supportive care and symptomatic treatment are still advised as with any viral infection. Next. As of 28 January, the total count cases is 4,593, with China 4,537 reporting the highest number of cases. And there are confirmed cases in Thailand. There you have it on the right side of your screen. Singapore, Australia, Japan, Malaysia, France, Germany, Korea, USA, Vietnam, Cambodia, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Canada. There are about 54 total number of cases outside of the whole of China. There are 106 deaths recorded out of the 5,000, or the rather 4,593 cases. Hence, a case fatality ratio of 2.3%. All recorded deaths are so far from China. Next, in terms of risk level, China has been classified as very high risk. The Western Pacific region is considered high risk, while global risk has been classified as high, from moderate just 2 days ago. So this gives us an idea of how quickly this virus seems to be mutating and the transmission rate increasing by the day. Your Honors, there are 55 novel coronavirus-related health events that were reported to the Epidemiology Bureau of the DOH. A total of 27 of the 50 are categorized as patient under investigation, or PUI. All have history of travel to Wuhan City, Hubei Province, China. Of the reported PUIs, 4 have been cleared and discharged, while the 5-year-old suspected case tested negative, thankfully, after the Melbourne, Australia International Reference Laboratory released its test, which yielded, again, negative. So far, there are 0 confirmed cases of nCoV in our country. This map shows the distribution of PUIs reported in the Philippines. So you can see the breakdown as flashed on the screen. And to put perspective on the nCoV against other pathogenic coronaviruses that cause severe illness, I would like to refer you to the comparison table between the SARS-CoV, the MERS-CoV, and the nCoV. Until recently, human coronaviruses received relatively little attention due to their mild forms in humans. This, however, changed in 2002 when cases of severe atypical pneumonia were described in Guangdong, China, causing worldwide concern as diseases spread via international travel to more than 24 countries. The new disease became known as the Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome, or SARS, and a beta H-CoV named SARS-CoV was identified as the causative agent. Ultimately, Your Honors, classic public health measures brought the SARS pandemic to an end, but not before 8,098 individuals there, as you can see, were infected, and 774 died, with a case fatality rate of 10%, the second highest next to the MERS-CoV, which posted a 36% case fatality ratio. So, which brings me, in 2012, another highly pathogenic COVID plagued the world when the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome was recognized, and MERS-CoV was identified in the sputum of a Middle Eastern man who died from respiratory failure. But unlike SARS-CoV, which rapidly spread across the globe and was contained and eliminated in relatively short order, MERS has smoldered, characterized by sporadic zoonotic transmission and limited chains of human spread. Your Honors, according to the World Health Organization, as of November 2019, MERS-CoV has caused a total of 2,494 cases and 858 deaths, the majority in Saudi Arabia. The natural reservoir of MERS-CoV is presumed to be bats. Yet, human transmission events have primarily been attributed to an intermediate host, the dromedary camel. While MERS has not caused the international panic seen with SARS, the emergence of this second, highly pathogenic zoonotic HCoV illustrates the threat posed by this viral family. In 2017, the WHO placed SARS-CoV and MERS-CoV on its priority pathogen list, hoping to galvanize research and the development of countermeasures against COVIDs. With the emergence of the 2019 nCoV, Your Honors, we currently see similarities with SARS-CoV, such as its symptomatology and epidemiology. However, in terms of virulence, at this early stage of the disease outbreak, we see a comparatively lower case fatality rate at 2.3%. Again, there on your screen, for your better appreciation, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, we are vigilantly watching out for further developments on the knowledge regarding this novel coronavirus, and we expect iterative changes as the days pass by. Corollary, in the following table, we see the comparative virulence of the seasonal influenza virus, or the common flu, against the 2019 nCoV. And gleaning from the reports of the WHO and the CDC, we see that the global case fatality rate of nCoV against the seasonal flu at around the same time period, rather, December 2019 to January 2020, is comparatively lower than that of the latter, figuring at 2.3% versus 4.7% aggregated from all serotypes. Yan lang po, madali po ang sinasabi dito. Kung ihahambing po natin sa seasonal flu, same time period, about from December 2019 to January 2020, and compared to these emerging novel coronavirus, you still see a relatively lower case fatality ratio. And while these data shows us the facts, Your Honors, we at the DOH are not letting our guards down. In response to the threat of the 2019 nCoV, the DOH has, one, established a dedicated task force on 2019 nCoV. We issued interim guidelines on the same. We heightened the border screening or surveillance through thermal scanning and use of the health declaration card or checklist. Ito po yung yellow forms na ibinibigay sa atin po mga pumapasok na mga pasahero. We have mandated the use of decision table in evaluating sick passengers, directed triaging at the arrival area on sick passengers, ensured laboratory and hospital preparedness. We have established the 2019 nCoV surveillance for daily updates. Ngayon po, araw-araw na po, nagbibigay kami ng mga pinakahuling evidence-based and science-based reports for the media and for the general public. And of course, last but not least, we have intensified risk communication in all communications or media platforms, including, of course, the social media. Moreover, personal protective equipment are available at the Bureau of Quarantine, Centers for Health Development, and the DOH hospitals. Your DOH is also closely monitoring individuals who manifested signs of respiratory infection and has had a history of travel to China, and coordinating with WHO and China Center for Disease Control for updates. The DOH reiterates that the public must practice frequent hand washing, avoid unprotected contact with farm or wild animals, practice proper cough etiquette, maintain at least 1 meter distance, and cover the mouths and sneezes with a tissue or the crook of the elbow. Avoid close contact with people showing cold or flu-like symptoms, and ensure that the food that is eaten is well cooked. Hindi pwedeng mahilaw-hilaw. Lalo na, meron po rin tayong African swine flu. Travelers with symptoms of respiratory illness either during or after travel are urged to seek medical attention immediately. All health facilities are to enhance standard infection prevention and control practices, especially in our emergency triage departments. Lastly, again, I emphasize, we must always be ready. Better ready than sorry. Again, in behalf of the DOH, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, and to the distinguished members of the House of Representatives. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. And we're ready to answer the questions from the floor. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, in view of the limited time that we have and the importance of the subject matter, I move that we limit the time for questioning of each member to 5 minutes each. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we move now to the period of interpellation. And first to interpellate, I move that we recognize the chairwoman of the Committee on Health, the Honorable Angelina Helen Tan, for her interpellation. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Helen Tan is hereby recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, colleagues and the Honorable Secretary. Just to summarize the points I made during my privileged speech yesterday, allow me to ask the following clarificatory questions to the Secretary. The first question is, as I understand it, the novel coronavirus is genetically distinct from the common human coronaviruses, which cause seasonal acute respiratory illness. It is also genetically distinct from the two newer human coronaviruses, MERS-CoV and the SARS-CoV. May I know if we have the capability to do the definitive testing for 2019 novel coronavirus? Because as I understand, current testing is being sent to Australia. And if so, do we have resources to procure whatever is necessary? And how soon can we start testing on our own?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chairman of the Committee on Health. The Japanese counterpart of the RITM today has just brought with them the team a primer, RNA primer, which is needed to help us identify whether the novel coronavirus suspect cases, once there's throat swabs, their nasopharyngeal swabs, are submitted to RITM for testing. With the RNA primer, yes, in about 48 hours, we shall be able to set up our own capability to detect novel coronavirus and no longer need to send for confirmatory testing to Melbourne, Australia. So yes, the answer to that is yes.
So are we planning to have that equipment or whatever agents that they're using to test for coronavirus, to have it placed here in RITM or any other facilities in
For the first-
government hospitals?
Yes, ma'am. For the first round of testing, we are adequately supplied. But for the, we will have to find out the volume of the supplies that have been brought by the Japanese contingent to help us precisely to do the testing ourselves and confirm it ourselves. And this will cut the turnaround time by 50%.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Secretary. There were news that came out, I think, an hour ago in different media outlets on the death of a patient under investigation in San Lazaro. Can you update us, because some of the reports are deceiving, saying that this is the first death in the Philippines of this Chinese national?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. The case that has been reported, though inaccurately, by I believe it was CNN, this patient, although satisfied the criteria for a person under investigation, as I have presented on the screen, the latest result of the tests done by both RITM and the San Lazaro Hospital, which is also a reference laboratory, which has a reference laboratory capability, is from RITM. It was positive for staph aureus, And while the San Lazaro reference laboratory yielded a positive for HIV/AIDS virus for 2 testings that were conducted. But having said that, we are still awaiting for the test that will be run by the RITM, given now that we have the new RNA primer and the new reagents, so that we can say for sure and conclusively whether this could be a co-infection or there is absolutely no coronavirus as the one of the possible causes.
So just to allay the fears of our countrymen, you're confirming that this is not a coronavirus related death.
Yes, I underscore that there's nothing in the preliminary test results that would show that this death is caused by novel coronavirus.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Secretary. My next question, just in case that the NCOV enters the country, considering the speed by which it spreads across the different population, do we have the necessary infrastructure to accommodate the influx of patients just in case? Another question is mandatory reporting for these cases in place?
Yes, the answer to the first question, ma'am, is the capacities of all of the DOH retained hospitals and medical centers have been leveled up. That was the initial instructions or directive of the DOH Execom to all of our regional directors. Same directive was cascaded to all of our medical center chiefs to, in fact, specifically set aside a number of isolation rooms. Okay, so that's now very much in place. And insofar as the infrastructure is concerned, from the level of border surveillance, which is the mandate of the Bureau of Quarantine, this has been very much put in place, and also this has been heightened, in fact, to include the reinstatement of the health declaration card or the yellow form, and also the issuance of the guidelines, interim guidelines, which will change from day to day as we are updated by the WHO. We are nimble to the information stream that goes to the DOH, and we make the necessary adjustments. And also, Madam Representative, we have also put in place the surveillance systems, community surveillance. So this is not just about the border surveillance, but also the surveillance within the communities. Kasi baka kung makalusot at mapunta sa mga komunidad, maigi na po yung may kakayahan po tayo. At ang gumagawa po niyan ang ating Epidemiology Bureau, meron po tayong mga surveillance unit officers na sila po ang nakatutok, and they're in constant coordination with our frontline Bureau of Quarantine officers. And then our risk communication and community engagement, the public health advisories, I think you have come across some of them, and we are also leveling this up so that the public will be able to benefit from evidence-based, science-based information, and to neutralize whatever infodemics or the epidemic of false or fake news that are being propagated by unwitting or individuals who are perhaps not aware, sufficiently informed of the latest with regard to and coronavirus, Madam Representative.
Mr. Speaker, last question in the interest of time and to give way to our colleagues here. I was informed that yesterday you have that high-level meeting, interagency meeting. One of the concerns is that the restriction on flights and the repatriation of our OFWs in China. Can you share with us what transpired in that high-level meeting?
The high-level meeting, Mr. Speaker, Madam Representative, is on the authority of the Executive Order 168, number 168, issued by then President Aquino in 2014. And this is the Emerging Infectious Disease Task Force, which consists of representatives, in fact, cabinet-level representatives from, of course, the DOH heading or chairing the task force. We have the DOJ, because of the Bureau of Immigration is there. The DOTR, the Philippine Coast Guard, being a operating unit of the agency. Then we have the Department of Tourism. We have the DOLE. We have the DOTC, DOTR, and the DILG. We convened yesterday and arrived at a resolution to do the following. Number one is to facilitate the voluntary return of Filipinos who are currently in Wuhan City, China. Those who have manifested their desire to be repatriated to the Philippines, and we said that we will prepare. So there will be chartered flights. The Civil Aeronautics Board and the CAAP are preparing the chartered flights. They are contracting chartered flights precisely to bring in the 50 or so Filipinos who have manifested their desire to be repatriated, plus the conditionality that should they come back to the Philippines, they will be all collectively subjected to quarantine measures. Para lang po nakakasiguro tayo na hindi po sila makabalik at makapangahawa naman doon po sa ating mga kapwa Pilipino. At of course, that is of course one of the contents of the resolution. Second is of course the commitment that the DOH will provide continuous flow of evidence-based information and public health advisories. Because right now, the dilemma there is the communications barrier. The language barrier is really making it very difficult for our people to understand the local health authorities' advisories. So we intend to complement this by giving them through telemedicine, which is also being put in place. As we are talking, the telemedicine infrastructure is being prepared, Your Honor. So these are the two more important DOH-related contents of the resolution passed by the task force. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and the Honorable Secretary for giving us time for our invitation to come here and update us on the issues or the status on the novel coronavirus. So maraming salamat po sa inyong pagdalo sa hapong ito. Thank
Pero
you,
din po, maraming salamat po sa inyo. At sa pagkakataon, ibinibigay ninyo sa Department of Health upang makapagpaliwanag hinggil po sa namamayagpag na ating novel coronavirus. Maraming salamat po sa ngalan ng DOH.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to acknowledge the Honorable Lauren Legarda from the Lone District of Antique for her interpellation.
Deputy Speaker Lauren Legarda is even recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just quick questions. May
Thank you, sir.
the Honorable Secretary Francisco Duque yield to a few questions?
Yes,
Hi, Secretary. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, yes, certainly.
The other day, I communicated with Secretary Teddy Locsin upon the impression, or I thought that it would be the designation or the task of the Department of Foreign Affairs to decide on whether we should close our airports and seaports temporarily during the crisis, the health crisis, to any Chinese mainland tourists. And he texted me that he has shared or delegated the authority to the DOH through Secretary Duque. Your Honor, may I confirm if this is indeed accurate? And second, if it is your task to do so, are you inclined at the soonest possible time to ban First, the entry of any mainland Chinese tourists while the virus is still not contained in mainland China. Just that basic question, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Madam Representative. The situation remains fluid, and certainly the task force of the DOH on the novel coronavirus meets every now and then, and in fact very frequently, to be guided by the recommendations from the WHO. They bridge the DOH to the health authorities in Wuhan city in particular, the Hubei province, and the whole of China for that matter. And certainly that's one of the possible options that we are looking at, but not at this very moment.
Okay.
The reason being, Your Honor, is we have to be very careful also about the possible repercussions of doing this in the light of the fact that the confirmed cases of coronaviruses are not limited to China, but now, in fact, in several countries, as I have shown on the slides. And if we do this, then the concerned country, and China in this case, might question why we're not doing the same for all the other countries that have reported confirmed cases of the novel coronavirus. So it's a very tricky, very difficult issue that you have raised, but certainly we commit to take this into consideration as we move on in making the necessary adjustments or revisions in our guidelines, Your Honor.
Mr. Secretary, in my understanding, then only flights from Wuhan to the Philippines has been banned. Is that correct, Mr. Secretary?
Yes, Your Honor. I believe that this is an international airport in Wuhan. So I think there are many other provinces. The Chinese nationals would need to go to one of the international airports, one of the major international airports. So now, at least for Wuhan, there's been a lockdown. The Chinese government has already restricted travel to and from Wuhan city, and I think even Hubei at this point, but subject to validation.
Since we are a heavily populated country and we are clearly incapable of handling such a health crisis should it happen in the Philippines, would it not be prudent, Mr. Secretary, to be proactive and ban temporarily any mainland Chinese tourists in any airport or port, not just Wuhan, since the coronavirus has spread to other cities in China? Again, let me not be misconstrued. I just value too much the health of the Filipino people. And 108 million people, heavily populated, dikit-dikit sa mga syudad po. And we do not have the resources nor perhaps the medical know-how. We have to send some of our tests to Australia. So would it not be prudent for us? Take, for example, Subic, when the residents protested against the entry of a cruise ship bearing the mainland Chinese residents who may or may not be inflicted with the coronavirus. So this is actually not my personal belief, but I've been asked as an elected representative, not only of my province, but of even other representatives who may be shy to manifest this, or other people. And they're asking, what are you in Congress doing? So I asked Secretary Locsin, and I can show you the text of Secretary Teddy. He said, Lauren, I agree with you. You may be right. So I tried to call you the other night. I understand you're very busy. We could not communicate with each other. So I'm putting it on record on the possibility of just temporarily closing to mainland because it has spread there. I'm not saying that all others, where there are one or two victims, that we should close our tourism to those areas, but should we not close it? I recall that there is a Wuhan-Katiklan flight, which was operating until last Wednesday. And your very efficient DOH personnel had to look for the Wuhan individuals who were already in Boracay vacationing and had to be retrieved from Boracay and returned back to Wuhan. Correct me if my information is inaccurate. So do we still need to do that? To allow some Chinese from Wuhan who may have gone to Shanghai or Beijing and infected some people there to come to the Philippines because we have not closed our doors and look for them in our provinces and then send them back? Would it not be more efficient that we simply just say no for the meantime until the situation has been contained in mainland China? Just a question, Mrs. I know it's very tricky. I realize there are political and diplomatic repercussions, but for me, the health of the Filipino people, especially those who may not have the resources to buy masks, to stay away from each other, if that is at stake, then we must do everything to protect our people. Secretary. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Representative. First of all, I share with you your concern for the health of the Filipino people. That is the mandate of the DOH. And in terms of the preparedness of the DOH to deal with this challenge, as I have said, we have scaled up, we have leveled up our border surveillance. Our quarantine officers are well equipped to make sure that patients who will be classified as persons under investigation will be isolated. Consequently, they will be subjected to further evaluation.
Thank you.
And the specimens, the collection will be sent to the reference lab, the RITM, which is the primary laboratory that does the testing. The second level would be the Regional Epidemiology and Surveillance Unit. The mechanism is also in place. So we've leveled up across the spectrum of the health system that is to respond to the event even when the end coronavirus enters the country. But let me reassure you, Your Honor, that we will always bear in mind this very well meaning recommendation that you have so eloquently articulated. And certainly we will think of it. We will always consider this in the next task force meetings, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mrs. Secretary. Mr. Speaker, my last question, Mr. Speaker, is I have read in reports in the news that some of the blood tests have been sent to Australia, and I would imagine that our private hospitals or the DOH or the RITM that does the processing of the results of the blood tests are the Philippine authorities in health under DOH, do we have the equipment, the personnel to assess immediately whether it is coronavirus, or are the technology and the equipment not available in the Philippines under DOH or RITM or any agency of DOH? And if so, what is needed so that in the NEP of 2021, which you're doing now, kindly put all the trainings for your personnel, all the equipment needed under DOH, under RITM, is that correct, the RITM?
Right.
That's the one that's doing it, right? Is there any other agency that is equipped with that? And why are we sending the results to Australia yet to confirm or verify if it is coronavirus? Are we incapable of knowing the results here in our medical facilities? Mr.
Yes.
Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Madam Representative, the testing capability wasn't available until today, because Japan, as I have said earlier, has brought the contingent from Japan, which is the RITM counterpart, has arrived this morning with the RNA primer and the reagents needed to identify the novel coronavirus in persons under investigation. And by Friday, I was assured by the executive director of RITM that the setup will be ready and they will be testing the specimens once submitted to them. So that way, the need for an international confirmatory testing will no longer be necessary.
When do we know? Last question. When do we know whether the 27 is just flu or coronavirus, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Speaker?
Pardon me?
How do we confirm whether the 27 under investigation is
yes.
actually...
The specimens, these are throat swabs, oropharyngeal, nasopharyngeal swabs. Part of the protocol, testing protocol, is automatically sending these specimens to the RITM, and they do an initial testing. It's a little bit technical. My apologies. The RITM initially runs the FTD 33 test. This is a test for several viruses and bacteria, some other microbes. But unfortunately, that initial testing capability cannot identify specifically the novel coronavirus. It can identify the pan-coronavirus, which is non-specific. And that should trigger, therefore, a higher level testing, which is going to be more definitive for the novel coronavirus. And like I have said, Your Honor, this will now be available by Friday, Your Honor. But we will, of course, certainly submit to you. I have already been given an indicative budget that will support us mount a more effective response to this emerging infectious disease.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Mr. Secretary. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to acknowledge the Honorable Jose Atienza Jr. of Buhay Party List.
Honorable Atienza is hereby recognized.
Maraming salamat po. Mr. Secretary, thank you for acceding to come here and help us be informed more accurately so that our people will also be informed at hindi sila matatakot na lamang nang wala kaming kasagutan. My first question is, as you presented it and as we know it, the symptoms of the coronavirus strain today are very similar to that of the ordinary flu. Is that right or wrong?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is there any difference between the two that we can immediately identify coronavirus yan? Pag-ingatan natin. I had a child who got sick with flu the past week. Siyempre, kabadong-kabado lahat ng mga pamilya. Ako hindi ako natakot. Sabi ko, flu yan eh, flu. The flu. And your figures show that. So is there any discernible difference between the symptoms of ordinary flu and coronavirus?
Doon po sa mga katulad natin na maayos po ang atin kalusugan, yung pong atin kakayahan, labanan, itong... kasi kahit na po yung ordinaryong coronavirus, sa atin kaya natin yan. After a few days, mawawala. Self-limiting. Pero sa mga may mga coexisting medical conditions, diabetes, hypertension, cancer, yan po kahit na yung mga hindi mabigat na coronavirus ay makapagdudulot ng seryoso o grabeng komplikasyon. Pero dito po sa ngayon, ang tama po kayo, lahat ng signs and symptoms almost are similar except that meron pong severe acute respiratory infection propensity, ito pong novel coronavirus, as evidenced by the cases that have been managed in the different hospitals in Wuhan City.
So at this point, wala pong unmistakable and unquestionable symptom that we should look for in a suspected coronavirus victim.
Wala po. Wala pong malinaw na
So therefore, yung flu at yung coronavirus are almost equally the same.
Opo, based on what we have projected on the slide, Your Honor.
Yan po yung importante yan para ang ating mga mamamayan ay hindi takot, hindi stressed, at hindi sila matatarantang bumili ng mask na ngayon ay out of stock na. Some people are making a lot of money, incidentally, for this particular situation. And according to your figures, in a period from 2019 up to 2020, out of 44,000 cases of flu, 7,000 died. Tama po ba yung inyong naalala kong figure?
Tama po kayo. I'm just double checking.
At yung figure natin sa coronavirus, kulang-kulang 5,000, ay 106 lang ang namatay so far. Tama rin po yun.
Tama po yun.
Sa makatuwid, ang laki ng threat, banta sa buhay ng trangkaso, yung kilala nating flu, influenza, or you may want to call it any other name. 7% out of 44,000 who got it died in the process. But those suspected, or maybe in some quarters affirmed, to be coronavirus victims, 106 lang ang namatay. So why are we so rattled about this issue? Why are we so heated? Why is the Philippines, for that matter, nawala tayo ni, not even one case is confirmed today. Bakit tayo natataranta? Bakit natin tinataranta ang ating mga tao? I wouldn't blame the Department of Health to quietly do your job, guard against the spread of your suspected virus, but seeing, hearing, and nothing else on television except this particular issue, while our poor are dying of ordinary trangkaso, tuberculosis, cancer. Yung problema ng mga mahihirap, yun ang ating pag-usapan palagay ko ngayon sa Kongreso. Kung ano ang kailangan para ang TB ay hindi na po kumitil ng buhay ng Pilipino. Coronavirus, mag-ingat na lang tayo. Dapat itinuturo talaga yung proper sanitation. Hindi naman dahil sa meron lamang banta. Tama po ba yung aking assumption? Kaya, Mr. Secretary, please help us explain this to our people.
Tama po yung inyo pong pagkakaintindi nitong sitwasyon na ito. Ang problema lang po, kasi bago nga po ito, so hanggang ngayon, even the WHO sees too many blind spots about this virus. And because it's novel, we do not know to what extent the mutation of this virus will reach. And so it's better that we are prepared. We prepare for the worst, hope for the best, so to speak. So yun lang po yun. Kaya po tinututukan natin ito. Katuwang po natin ng World Health Organization na siya po nagmamatsyag kung ano ba yung mga developments patungkol sa virus na ito. Hindi lamang po sa loob ng China, kundi sa labas ng China sa marami na pong mga bansa. At sana po sa atin hindi makapasok. Katulad po ng MERS-CoV kung nagkaroon man kakaunti in 2014 and 2015. Ang SARS naman nagkaroon din tayo in 2003, but it was an imported SARS. No community transmission.
Salamat po sa inyong sagot. Ako'y magmumungkahi lang sapagkat kayo kilala kong personal. Maganda siguro, dagdagan ninyo yung inyong mga advisory. Ang Pilipino ay malakas ang katawan. Hindi tayo tinamaan ng SARS. Hindi tayo tinamaan ng MERS-CoV. Maraming sakit na hindi dumadapo rito. Pero yung sakit na nandito na, yun ang ating pag-ingatan. Pwede naman pag-ingatan yung TB. Pwede naman pag-ingatan yung mga ibang sakit na pumapatay ng tao. Siguro dadagdagan lang ninyo na magkaroon kayo ng tiwala na hindi ito papatay sa inyo ngayon o bukas. Sapagkat hindi pa namin alam hanggang ngayon. Wala pa nga ako may sagot kay Congressman Atienza. Para po naman pumanatag ang ating bayan, ang ating mga tahanan, at pag nagkaroon ng trangkaso ang isang miyembro ng pamilya, hindi po natataranta. Katulad po ngayon. Dahil maraming mga pangyayari na hindi natin maipaliwanag. And one day, a vaccine, maybe soon, will be discovered, and people will again spend billions of pesos all over the world. We may all be being stampeded by some people here, by some institutional greed, dahil hindi natin talagang alam kung ano ang punot dulo ng lahat na ito. Pwedeng gawa ito ng tao, pwede itong gawa ng mga makapangyarihang bansa, biktima tayong lahat. Thank you for your presence.
Salamat din po.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I'd move to acknowledge the Honorable Senior Deputy Minority Leader, the Honorable Janet Garin from the 1st District of Iloilo.
Honorable Janet Garin is hereby recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, of course, the DOH family and the RITM family under the able leadership of Secretary Duque. Magandang hapon po sa lahat.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Secretary, earlier I heard a colleague who was somehow afraid, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard the words, nakakatakot because we are incapable. We don't have the experts, we don't have the know-how, and we probably are not equipped to answer a situation that China is facing now. Do you confirm or deny this statement?
Your Honor, we are ready in terms of the infrastructure and the technical capability is available, the RITM and its subnational laboratories. So I think at this point, there's nothing to doubt the capability of the DOH in mounting an effective response to this emerging coronavirus.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished Secretary, would you agree with me if we boast and say that in fact not only in the Philippines, but even in research centers all over the world, and even in the World Health Organization, there are a lot of Filipino experts and Filipino scientists. Totoo po ba ito o hindi?
Oh, totoo po yan. And we stand proud of our people in that regard.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Speaker. Uulitin ko lang po, hindi po tayo dapat mabahala dahil hindi po incapable ang Pilipinas. Marami po tayong eksperto, marami po ang know-how, and we are fully equipped. We have been through SARS. That was a lot scary because during SARS, wala pong alam ang mga tao dito at wala tayong gamit. When we had MERS-CoV, we were partially equipped, and when we had Ebola, we were almost fully equipped. And after Ebola, now that nCoV 2019 is here, we actually have RITM, whose laboratory is already a biosafety level 3 laboratory. Ang ibig po natin sabihin, andyan na po yung mga ospital, andyan po yung mga gamit, andyan po yung mga tao. Every time walang outbreak, walang emerging infectious disease, sarado po yun. Pero pagka merong sakit na nangyayari, all it triggers is one push at the fingertip of the Secretary of Health. Am I right, Mr. Speaker, Distinguished Secretary?
Certainly, Your Honor.
So sinasabi niyo po na lahat ito are in place. Kailangan lang with a push button, when you do the command, when you call a command conference, everybody moves. And they are continuously trained and continuously updated. Tama po?
Yes, Your Honor. That's the reason why we have this command conference today.
and constantly in close coordination with all of our regional offices and DOH retained hospitals and medical centers.
Mr. Speaker, kalimitan po pagka merong sakit na ganito, ang agad-agad na sinasabi, the Department of Health transforms into a SWAN. May the Honorable Secretary expound on this.
Ano ba yung SWAN?
SWAN. Ano yung SWAN? Itik. SWAN. SWAN.
I'm not aware of the literal or the figurative.
Yeah, okay. Mr.
SWAN.
Speaker, Honorable Secretary, the reason why the Philippines has been called the SWAN, because every time there is an emerging infectious disease, the whole DOH family would appear so calm at the outside, but severely paddling below because we are extremely prepared. Kaya minsan, kaya po ganun ang nilalabas because while all the experts prepare sa baba, paddling for survival and in preparation, preempting every move and every transmission, hindi naman po pwede na bawat galaw nila sabihin nila sa tao, lalo na kapag ikay hindi kasama dun sa pag-aaral dahil baka ikaw ay matakot. Tama po ba ito?
Oh, tama po. I think that's a way of characterizing the DOH. We have very hardworking professional civil servants quietly doing their jobs, but they're dedicated, they're committed, and
So
they're
ibig
technically
sabihin, Mr.
proficient.
Speaker, Honorable Secretary, marami ang ginagawa sa ilalim na hindi nakikita sa taas because the preparation is done silently but efficiently.
Tama po kayo,
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Thank you, Secretary. Mr. Speaker, allow me to commend Secretary Duque and the DOH family for seeking the guidance of the World Health Organization. To again reiterate, WHO is the authority, has a convening power, has a global coordinating mandate when it comes to health, and supposedly is objective in its decision-making. So the update on situations like this and the guidance, direction, and response is best taken from the World Health Organization in Geneva, not in the regional or the country level, to ensure the integrity of information and avoid fake news. And as you understand, you're nodding, and I know you're very much aware of this, even the World Health Organization approach is one of a coordinated response to the situation. One message, one action, one decision. Would you affirm this, Mr. Secretary, distinguished Speaker?
Yes, certainly, Your Honor.
Dagdag po, Mr. Speaker, kanina may mga hinaing at may pananako, may natatakot yung iba. Baka daw po nung binawasan ang budget ng Department of Health, hindi magawa ng ospital, hindi malagyan ng mga laboratorio, at hindi natin masugpo ang sitwasyon na ito. However, Mr. Speaker, distinguished Secretary, as I have been part of your family before, I was with the RITM family when we pushed, initiated, bidded out, and started the construction of an RITM Biosafety Laboratory Level 3. Does the Secretary confirm this?
Yes, Your Honor. It continues to operate.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished Honorable Secretary, pwede po bang malaman ng ating mga kongresista at ng sambayan ng Pilipino, ano po ba ang ibig sabihin ng Biosafety Laboratory Level 3?
It's a bit technical, Your Honor, Mr. Speaker. I'm just...
Would you allow me to laymanize it?
Sure, but if you do, as you've been very much a part of the RITM family, you'd be in a much authoritative position to characterize the biosafety level 3.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, a BSL, a Biosafety Laboratory Level 3 at the Research Institute of Tropical Medicine is actually the extreme preparation para kapag merong mga virus o mga sakit na hindi pa kilala, meron tayong kakayahan na makilala at sugpuin ito. At meron tayong kakayahan na gumapang at umaksyon agad. Yan po ang ibig sabihin. This laboratory was not present during the time of SARS, MERS-CoV, and Ebola. Pero ito ang naging basihan. Ano po bang ibig sabihin nito? Kailangan ba itong dagdagan Kasi marami po ang nananawagan, Mr. Secretary, na baka pwedeng dagdagan yung mga BSL-3. But the problem here is that is a very expensive laboratory to maintain. We do not need a budget to create another laboratory because it might end up as a white elephant. And the reason, Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, na kailangan pang ipadala sa Australia at tayo'y naghihintay, it is not because we are not capable. We are capable as Filipinos. We have more experts than the other countries. However, kailangan po ng kontrol. Kailangan ng kontrol dahil ito ay bagong virus. And the control ay madaling ginagawa at pinapadala sa mga bansa na may kakayanan. And that is why when the control arrived last night or this morning, we can establish it in 48 hours. That is how prepared we are. That is how prepared Secretary Duque and the DOH family is. Do you affirm this, Secretary? So ang hinihintay natin is not really a machine na iniisip natin magko-construct. It's a control. Because when you test for something, meron ka palaging control. Tingnan nyo yung laboratory results nyo. Cholesterol, merong control, merong result. Kasi kung wala kang control, hindi mo masabi kung talaga bang tama o hindi ang iyong resulta. Tama po ba ito, Secretary?
Tama po kayo. In fact, I just would like to add very briefly that certainly it is very expensive to maintain the operation of a biosafety lab level 3. In fact, I was told you need 3 million monthly at the minimum just to
Please
keep
reiterate,
this.
Secretary, how much is it?
It's 3 million pesos a month.
Only
That
for
is
the
minimum.
maintenance.
While it's not being put to full use, you need to maintain it because the climate control, the filtration mechanisms that have to be ensured are functional. So this is what it is. And so you're right, Madam Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Another issue that has been flooding the media, and we hear a lot of people na parang nangangapa sila, na natatakot sila. Bakit ba yung WHO hindi agad-agad nagdeklara ng public health emergency of international concern? Will the Honorable Secretary, Mr. Speaker, educate the public what does a declaration of a public health emergency of international concern means? What are its implications?
Well, it is a matter of fact that the WHO, which convened Thursday of last week, were deciding whether they would declare a public health emergency of international concern with respect to the novel coronavirus. But the data presented to them, they concluded, at least for that particular meeting, that it would be not prudent to declare a global health emergency because of the following information or data that have been gathered or collected from the ground. And number one is they're saying that of all the infected cases reported, majority were of the mild form of the coronavirus clinical manifestation. Number two, that less than, I think only about 21% has manifested or have manifested severe clinical symptoms, and that consistently the case fatality rate has just been hovering between 2 and 3.5%. So they will convene depending on, again, how quickly this virus continues to mutate and to what extent it will do so. Nobody knows for sure, but again, they are prepared to convene 10 days from the last time of their meeting.
In other words, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Secretary, what you are saying is that declaration made by WHO for diseases that are classified as public health emergency of international concern is based on the International Health Regulations of 2005. And Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, dagdag ko na lang po, ano po bang ibig sabihin nito? Ang ibig po sabihin nito is when they declare, it will be a trigger for all countries, whether affected or not, to spend money and contribute. Meaning to say, yung declaration does not have something to do na hindi inaasikaso. Hindi dinedeclare kasi hindi tayo dapat magsayang ng pera kung wala namang kailangan. Is that right, Mr. Secretary?
Precisely, Madam Representative.
Mr. Secretary, has the index case been identified for novel coronavirus?
In the Philippines?
No, in China, in Wuhan. The
No.
index case.
I don't think so. The beginning case where it came from.
I mean, index case actually is yung pinakaunang kaso. It's usually
right.
established by WHO. Of course, WHO courses their information through you. And the identification of an index case is actually very important kasi kung maraming natatakot at kung alam mo ng index case, at least na-hurdle mo na step 1. So we would like to know if an index case has already been identified from your discussions with WHO.
That's not clear, Your Honor.
Index case, like if we talk about Ebola, the index case was the child, yung unang napasukan from the animal to human. So in this case, has the index case been identified?
There has been no report based on the information given to me by our experts, the EB and the RIC.
It has been identified,
Yes.
sir?
Wala pa hong index case identified by China to the WHO.
Okay, so there is no index case yet. Okay, mali ang sinasabi na yung index case ando dun sa market. Wala yon, hindi pa yon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Secretary, has there been asymptomatic cases? Ibig sabihin, may mga pasyente po ba walang sintomas pero nagpositibo? I'm not referring to the Philippines, I'm referring to the global situation para po mapanatag yung kalooban ng ating mga kababayan.
That is not clear, Your Honor. That's why we are awaiting. In fact, the latest communications from the WHO is that although they have received reports of people who might possibly be infectious despite their not being symptomatic, is a cause for concern. However, the WHO says at the latest that there is no science to prove at this point that there has been a case proved to be positive and yet asymptomatic.
Yeah,
So we are
let me
awaiting.
categorically state it, Honorable Secretary. Ang kinakatakutan po ng mga tao, kasi lumabas yung salita na maski walang sintomas, pwede ka nang makapanghawa. And that is where all this fear is emanating. Kaya nagsuspend ng mga pasok. And I believe this is coming from the case in Germany where the confirmed case actually came from a patient from China who is asymptomatic. Tama po ba yun?
There has been that report, Your Honor.
Yeah. But Mr. Speaker, distinguished Secretary, kaya po natatakot ang tao na baka daw yung mga walang sintomas nakakapanghawa, kaya dito nag-i-start ang lahat ng panic. But can the Honorable Secretary categorically delineate theory versus proven science with regards to asymptomatic transmission?
I categorically state that the WHO has not found scientific evidence to support such a theory or a hypothesis. So we have to wait as the situation is fluid,
Yes,
Madam.
that's a very important response, Honorable Secretary. Ang ibig po sabihin ni Secretary Duque, may mga pagdududa. Kasi sa siyensya po, yan ang theory. Pagka may nahawa, nagpositibo, ang pinanggalingan walang sintomas, by theory, you are expecting asymptomatic transmission. Na walang sintomas, nakakahawa ka. That remains a theory. If that is duplicated, because this is only one case in Germany, if that is duplicated in other countries, then that is the time na dapat magpanik tayo. So, Honorable Secretary, may we request you that you reiterate all these lines, laymanizing this para mawala ang takot. Last question, Your Honor. Honorable Secretary, earlier I was at CNN, and the anchor told me that DOH and some officers advised to let the people wear masks once and for all to cut this confusion. Are you recommending the usage of surgical masks in the Philippines or not?
No, we don't. We never said that, Your Honor. What we were saying is, if you have symptoms of coughs, colds, your fever, it's safe. It's very considerate for one who feels these symptoms to cover with a surgical mask. And as you can see, I came here and I've been going around with maskless. So that's it. We never said that.
Yeah, ibig sabihin, hindi epektibo yung surgical mask, kaya nga surgical mask, ginagamit yan sa loob ng operating room. And Mr. Secretary, I know I'm running out of time, but because for public health purposes, may you appraise the honorable members of Congress and the general public, if you are using a surgical mask, what is the maximum number of hours that you can use it, and how do you dispose of it?
Well, the surgical mask can be used for to the limit about 8 hours a day, and then after that you need to, once it's soiled and has been saturated, you have to dispose of it properly, that is.
And what is the risk of using surgical mask vis-a-vis the transmission of novel coronavirus?
Assuming you have the novel coronavirus, the correct or appropriate mask is the N95, more than the surgical mask.
Yeah, thank you for that, Honorable Secretary. But what is the risk? Ano po ba ang danger na kapag tayo ay surgical mask, tapos may novel coronavirus, ano ang kadelikado doon? Mr. Speaker, because we're running out of time, let me answer the question. Napakahirap po kapag ikaw ay nagsa-surgical mask na wala namang epekto against the novel coronavirus. Because you have a tendency to keep on touching the mask. So kung nahawakan mo yung virus, novel coronavirus, somewhere, bumahing si Congressman Remulla, kunyari may virus, nahawakan ko, adjust ng mask, mahahawa ako. You create a venue by which you keep on touching your face, unprotected because the mask doesn't have protection, with unclean hands. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last request lang. Honorable Secretary, earlier, the DOH had press conferences. It pains us to see that hospitals are being mentioned. Moving forward, can we have the assurance that from now on, no hospitals, whatever, even for PUIs or other suspected patients, should be announced?
Sorry, pardon me again, Madam.
Can you give us the assurance that anybody in the department or anybody involved in the press conferences should refrain from mentioning the hospitals where the patients, because earlier there was a press conference that, not today, I think the previous day, San Lazaro was mentioned. So nagsumunod yung ibang mga generators of fake news, and they kept on mentioning the hospitals to the detriment of public health, because by protocol, any patient that is managed, the hospitals are never mentioned because it does more harm than good. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Representative.
Majority Leader.
Ang tagal mo. Magalingan kayo.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the Honorable Franz Castro of the Bayan Muna Party List.
Honorable Franz Castro is hereby
Salamat.
recognized.
Salamat, Mr. Speaker. Mga practical question lang ito, Secretary Duque, para mas maintindihan ng ating mga mamamayan. So, kung sinasabi natin kanina, yung flu, yung fever, yung cough, yung panghihina ng katawan, difficulty of breathing, ito yung common na mga symptoms. So, ang tanong, Mr. Speaker, Secretary, ano yung kakaiba? Para, alam mo ba ako, meron ako nitong lahat ng ito, na magdidetermine na pupunta na po ako sa ospital dahil may ganito, doon sa respective na sinasabi niyong ospital. Ano yung pagkakaiba nito doon sa iba pa nating mga subcommon na mga flu, at saka yung MERS-CoV, at saka iba pa po. Alam po para maintindihan.
Salamat po, ma'am. Batay po sa mga kasong mga pinangasiwa sa Wuhan, China, sa mga ospital, ay ang coronavirus maliban po sa ubo, sa sipon, sa lagnat. Ito po ay pwede magdulot ng kakapusan sa paghinga o sa mahirap na paghihinga o difficulty of breathing. Sunod po rito ay posibleng humantong sa pneumonia at sa severe acute respiratory infection. At pwede pong magkaroon ng komplikasyon doon din po sa kidneys, sa bato, at pwede pong mamatay din ang pasyente. At lalo na po, ang napansin nila ay kadalasan po ito yung mga coexisting medical conditions. No? May cancer, may...
So kapag naramdaman na po ito, ito na po yung time na yung isang tao kung pwede na pumunta sa ospital.
sana wag na pong antayin na...
Kaya nga po, ano nga po yung sinasabi nating time na dapat
yung time mo, pagka mga nagkakaroon na ho ng paghirap ng hinga, shortness of breath, ay dapat yan po ay dinatapos.
Sige. Sinasabi natin, Mr. Speaker, Secretary, na dapat handa tayo. Kasi to prevent the disease, dapat ready and handa po ang DOH. So sinasabi natin may 2 ospital lang. Paano kung yung merong infected na tao galing sa Mindanao, galing sa Visayas? And you said here, umiwas daw po sa mga farm animals. Alam naman natin 80% ay nasa agrikultura. At yung ating ospital ay yung RITM lang at saka yung San Lazaro. So gaano capacitated ba yung mga rural hospitals natin doon sa Mindanao, sa Visayas, just in case na nandoon yung virus o magkaroon tayo ng person affected nun?
Meron po tayong subnational laboratories. Ito po yung 6 na emerging and re-emerging infectious disease referral hospitals and 5 subnational laboratories na sa kasalukuyan po, dahil dumating nga po yung primer doon para sa novel coronavirus na andun po sa RITM, ay kami kukuha pa ng sapat na bilang para mabigyan o ma-distribute dito sa mga subnational laboratories.
So meron na po, kompleto po tayo sa Mindanao at saka sa Visayas?
May kasama po sa Mindanao ito. Isa.
Kasi bukas na bukas po yung ating mga...
2 po sa Mindanao, Madam Representative.
Okay, so meron po ba tayong enough na budget para dyan? So by the way,
meron
magkano
pa.
po ba yung ginastos natin doon sa Australia? Yung pagpapatest?
Maliit lang ho yun. We can give you the cost, how much was... hindi, ang tanong nyo po ay kung magkano ginastos sa Australia, yung reference laboratory. Wala ho kaming datos right now, but that is not really substantial, Your Honor.
Okay.
But however, ang sub-allotment na binigay po natin sa mga referral labs and hospitals ay ang total po 5 million.
Okay, so ina-assure nyo po, ay magkano po ba yung total budget natin para dito sa mga infectious diseases? Kasi hindi lang naman itong coronavirus yung pinaghahandaan natin. So total po para sa budget natin ng 2020. So sapat po ba ito doon sa preparedness and prevention and readiness?
Ito pong readiness and the preparations, budgetary support will be about 45 million ang requirement.
So okay na po ito?
Okay
Tapat
naman
na po ito?
Sa-
Okay, so yun lang po, Mr. Speaker. Thank you po, Mr. Secretary. So mahalaga lang po dito no, yung preparedness natin tsaka yung sa prevention.
Mr. Speaker, there being no other member who wishes to ask questions of the Secretary, I move that we close the question hour.
Are there any objections? If none, Mr. Secretary, in behalf of the 18th Congress and the representatives of the people, we want to thank you for coming here during question hour. It is very enlightening to hear you and to have a DOH that's very proactive. And it is our pleasure that this is a joint initiative of the executive and the legislative body. So please let us know whether it is the budget requirements or any legislation, or even the use of our individual influence in our district, that may help you. And I'd like to thank the men and women of the Department of Health for the work you're doing, the DFA, whose USEC and ASECs are also here today. And you will also have our prayers. We know that some of these things are too unpredictable, too many variables, too many moving parts, but through God's grace, through your hard work and through prayers, we can keep the country safe. So, Sec, thank you very much po.
Ours is the gratitude and appreciation to the House of Representatives for this opportunity for us to present to you this latest information and updates on the novel coronavirus. And rest assured, sir, we will do our job to the best of our abilities. And in case we need additional budgets, I'll be the first one to visit you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Majority Leader.
Speaker, move to suspend the session so that we can greet and thank our good Secretary and the Department of Health officials.
Session suspended.
Secretary.
May I request the members of the House, the Good Secretary and the Speaker will have a photo ops in the front of our plenary. May I request the members to please join us.
Wait.